zipped up one. Decided that's where I'm going for the moment.
Very good. In there.
Yeah. Thank you.
For breakfast, but I thought it was quite interesting to get some good feedback on the referendum. I think there's been a lot of rhetoric in the press.
Yeah.
I'm interested just to hear what people have got to say and actually hear some hard facts, which would be...
Yes.
I was always on the fence, unsure, and with a lot of the media press that you've had at national level, I think it's been more confusing for a lot of people than actually making them decide one way or the other, to be honest.
Yes. So,
Well, I'm very much on the fence, so
Yes.
I'm hoping that as well.
yeah, I think a lot of people today are on the fence. One of the reasons we are putting this on is to give people that want to know, see both sides. There's been a lot in the press leaned over one side or the other. So hopefully this will make the undecided vote much easier.
Absolutely, and hopefully sort out a bit of the scaremongering as well.
Yes, yeah, and that's possibly one of the questions that is going to arise in the next sort of hour or so.
Sure.
Brilliant. Thank you. Just like to say thank you for everybody for voting as you came in. I know not everybody knew who was doing that, and we're going to have a look at the results very shortly. We'll also give you the opportunity to vote on the way out as well, and then when we send the thank you email, we'll be able to give you the results there. So hopefully after today's talk, discussions, questions, it'll be a lot more informed about the way we're going to vote next month. Just to let everybody know, there's a couple of things. If you wanted to ask some questions, we will be putting some questions out to the audience later on. You can also use the hashtag BusinessConnected for anybody that's on Twitter and's going to be using that this morning. We're also filming the event today, and also the event is going out live on Facebook as well. So we will get hopefully some questions coming in. But first off, we'll have a little look at the result of today's vote. Very interesting, and we can see that it's fairly evenly split, with 36% remaining in, 28% looking to leave, and 36% undecided. So a fairly even split. I was hoping it was going to be a fairly even split, so that's good. And thanks. I think the majority of people did vote, so I think there was a good 130 odd votes today. So thank you for that. A little bit of brief history that I'm going to explain, and a couple of questions before we invite our speakers up to talk to you. Just some facts there about when we joined in 1973. Brent joins the old EEC. The United Kingdom has become a fully fledged member of the European community. In 1993, the EEC was incorporated and renamed as the European Community EC. And in 2009, the EC's institutions were absorbed into the current EU's wider framework, and the community ceased to exist. There's 28 members, and you can see there the years that they joined. We will be giving these slides out for you to have a look at afterwards as well, so you can digest these at your own pace. And there are the 28 countries of the EU comprises of 7.5% of the world's population. So that gives you some idea of the size of the EU currently. And then, an interesting fact there, Wales is 8% of the sheep in the EU, which to me was the most interesting fact of them all. So there you go. I just wanted to show a vote really, another vote. There's a common theme running through here. But just put your hands up if you got this through the post. Yeah, so there's a majority of people. And leave your hands up if you've read it all the way through. Okay, good. I won't ask what everyone thought. I think that's a bit of a personal question, but we can certainly discuss that when the questions come around. So I want to just let you know about our speakers today. We're going to hear from Hugo, who is a Dutch-born businessman. We want to hear really what Hugo has to say. We've got Bernard Jenkins MP, who's here from Vote Leave, and also Kate Godfrey from the Stronger In campaigns. We've got a real good spectrum of speakers that are going to give us their views very shortly. So I think we should start by introducing our first speaker, who is Hugo, and put your hands together for Hugo. Hi. Just a few facts and a little bit about Hugo. Hugo is an international business coach and leadership speaker. Hugo is Dutch-born, as I've mentioned, and has an impressive portfolio of education and experience. He worked in Holland, Sweden, and in 2008 in the UK. As a coach and speaker, he helps developing businesses and owners and their teams. Besides this, he's also involved in several public and non-for-profit organisations and charities in the UK, where he is sharing his broad leadership experience. Now living in Chelmsford with his wife and 3 daughters, Hugo has a global business network coupled with a full and happy family life. Hugo.
Thank you, Richard, and good morning, everyone. It's always great when we see some statistics, especially if the person that is putting the statistics together first has said, I hope there will be an evenly spread, and then, hey ho, what happens? There is an evenly spread, and I think over the last couple of months we've seen lots of statistics where you sometimes wonder, where do these statistics come from? So, as you can hear, I am not from Essex. I am working on my Essex accent, but I have a long way to go. But every evening I am reminded by my 3 daughters, and I consider them Essex girls, to correct my pronunciation. So that is about water and stuff like that. So I also thought to wear an orange tie just to give it away a little bit. But I just want to make a note. If you're really upset with what I'm going to say, and you want to beat up Dutch people at the end of my talk, don't attack Ian Perry. So I just want to be sure he always wears an orange tie, but I don't want to harm him in any way. So, yes, I am a foreigner. I moved to this country in 2008 to head up the UK organization for a Swedish company. And let me put one thing clear. I did not come to this country to steal a job. So I did not come to this country to steal a job. I actually came to this country to steal a high-paid job. So what can I say about the EU referendum? Well, first of all, I'm not allowed to vote as a foreigner. So when I talk to my clients about making decisions, I normally give them the advice, because as coaches we're not telling you what to do stuff, but I help you make an informed decision. So that is also what I would like to say to you this morning. When you're going to vote, please make an informed decision. Take ownership of that decision, because it is your vote. So you can't say, but this politician says this, and I read that statistic and it said that. It's your vote. And then the question is, are you basing yourself on facts or on opinions? And most of you here are business owners, or you're working in business. When we take decisions, do we base those decisions on someone's opinion, or do we base ourselves on the facts? So that would be my first, at least, encouragement for you. Take ownership of your vote and base yourself on the facts. But let me just give you some considerations, because can I just see a show of hands? Who here never washes his or her own car? But goes to the car cleaners around the corner? Because if you decide to leave, chances are that the people washing your car are leaving as well. So you will probably have to start washing your own car. And apart from that, if you look at a lot of the Eastern Europeans that are in this country, they are doing a lot of jobs that we probably don't even want to do. So consider that as well. And then another consideration, if all the Polish people leave, what are we going to do with Peterborough? Well, some facts. I don't know what the impact will be on sales. But I saw an interview with Lord Sugar yesterday, and he was referring to the 500 million potential customers that are on the European market. And in my last role, when I worked for Ports, I was heading up the third largest container terminal in the UK, London Container Terminal. And I often got the question that people were asking, so are you actually only discharging full containers and just loading empty containers? And I always wonder, where does that question come from? And I think a lot of people think that the UK is just consuming. Well, I can assure you that most ships that are being loaded and discharged in the container ports are discharging full containers, but they're loading full containers as well. Because I think the manufacturing and production in this country is much, much better developed and high-end than a lot of people that I speak to think. The UK is not just a consumption country, it is actually producing a lot and exporting a lot. So, just as a thought for your consideration, whenever you vote in or to leave, what could be the consequence of that? And once you're going to vote, because, and I think another fact about the EU, do I think that the EU, you saw the countries that are in the EU, do I think that it has eventually come to the result that we all had hoped it would be? I don't think so. Is there a lot of money spent in Brussels? Probably. Is it very bureaucratic? Absolutely. But I think once you're in, I think it's good to work together. And even if you look at a marriage, is my wife very expensive? Absolutely. Are my parents-in-law very bureaucratic, and does my mother-in-law always want to have information 3 weeks in advance? Absolutely. But still, you want to fight for it, and it's much easier to do that while you're in. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When you have driving lessons, the advice is normally, if you're not sure about what to do, don't do it. So my final thought for you this morning is, if you're in doubt, don't pull out. Thank you.
I'd like to now play a short video which is from the Stronger In campaign.
What makes our nation strong?
Whether on the pitch or in the boardroom, people are stronger when they work together.
EasyJet was born from deregulation in Europe. Airfares are 40% lower for consumers. More businesses, small, medium and large, have been able to be connected to Europe. It's easy, everything is easy because of Europe. Huge consumer benefit, but huge business benefits, so fostering trade, links all across Europe.
Being in Europe means I can export my wine without any barriers. To be stronger, I need European business, I need European goodwill, and I need European customers.
I love to go backpacking in Europe, and low roaming charges keep communication strong with my family back home.
Being a mum with another one on the way, I really feel that the right to maternity leave and holiday keeps families strong.
Crime crosses boundaries. It does not respect individual countries. We will keep citizens in our countries far safer by remaining within Europe.
Staying in Europe is vital for our business. It's growing substantially, our export orders, most of them into Europe, and that's where I think we should stay.
Being in Europe means UK's outstanding universities are even stronger. Students benefit from life-changing experiences of studying and working in Europe.
Being part of Europe means we're part of one of the biggest trading blocs in the world. So the bottom line is that we're much stronger being part of Europe than being an island to ourselves.
Great Britain is facing a massive choice, a choice that's going to affect us all for years to come. So most importantly, make sure your voice is heard. And let's together choose for a stronger Britain in Europe.
like to welcome Kate Godfrey. Kate's here representing Britain Stronger in Europe, and after first degrees in history and law, Kate spent 10 years working with international organisations in the Middle East and Africa, and completed field research in more than 60 countries, including Libya, Syria and Iraq. Having returned to the UK in her 30s, Kate became a key seat candidate for Labour, spending 3 years contesting the seat in Stafford. In the 6 months after the election, Kate had worked with local charities and spoke across the country on a debate tour on EU membership. Kate now leads engagement for Stronger in speaking on the risks of Brexit for local communities and businesses across the country. Kate Godfrey.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for turning out very early in the day. Personally, I'm starting to wish I'd stayed in bed because I'm not sure I can top Hugo's introduction. But what I can do is I can pick up on the spirit of it. And I always think if you've taken the trouble to get out of bed very early and to come along to something like this, it's our duty to try and keep you as awake as possible. And so I think Bernard and I should have what I like to call an ungentlemanly agreement, which is that we should be as feisty, combative, full of facts and information as we possibly can. And that's the tone that I'll try to take today. So in that sort of frame of mind, I'm going to start by asking you to turn to Bernard Jenkins, ladies and gentlemen, and to admire the very shiny pin that he is wearing, which is a Vote Leave pin. Now, Vote Leave are the campaign to bring Britain out of Europe and to turn away from our European allies. And that very shiny pin says that Bernard speaks on behalf of the campaign. So we've had months now of Vote Leave telling us how they want our trading relationships with the rest of the world to work, how they want our security arrangements to work, how they feel that Britain, the country that we will be after Brexit on the 23rd. If you have a clear idea of exactly what Bernard wants and how he sees our country developing in the future, could you raise your hand now?
That's right, yeah.
So I've asked that question of similar MPs and in similar rooms to 12,600 and approximately 30 people now, and the only person I've ever seen raise their hand was on the panel. And then I asked him, okay, so what's your view of things? And then he said, oh, I don't think you're going to ask me, I don't think I have to say what we're going to do. Good grief, that's not what we're about. And that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are now a few short weeks from the biggest political decision that we will take in my lifetime and yours, and we have got no idea what the Out campaign want to do or how they see our relationships with the rest of the world working in future. And I was really interested by the sort of fairly even split that we have between in, out and undecided. Statistically, if you're undecided at the moment, the chances are that you will vote to stay in. And I believe profoundly that the UK will vote to stay in. In politics, we listen to the polls sometimes, but we listen to the betting markets a lot more. And the chances on the betting markets at the moment, the probability that we'll come out of Europe is less than 20%. Why? Because we haven't seen the hard work being done. We haven't seen the information. We know that the reason that the government takes a very clear view on this, which is that Britain is stronger, safer and better off on Europe, is because we haven't seen a positive alternative being put forward. And that's something that's been recognised recently by the Out campaign. So for me, still the most interesting single fact is the work that was done by the Treasury, which has been scrutinised by the Financial Times, amongst other independent organisations, newspapers and authorities, which says that the cost of Brexit would be £4,300 per household by 2030 per year. The Out campaign accepted that figure. They didn't challenge it. And on the back of it, they commissioned a poster that said, it's not the economy, stupid, it's sovereignty. We don't normally say it's not the economy. We don't talk to business people and say the economy doesn't matter. We don't talk to people who work and say jobs don't matter. That was the honest poster that I have ever seen in my political lifetime. And as someone who has spent a lifetime on the left and is a Labour girl through and through from the Midlands, I personally find it very strange when I find myself in a room with a Conservative MP of 30 years standing, and I'm the one who likes David Cameron most, and I'm the one who most wants him to be Prime Minister in a couple of months' time. But we've got to ask, why did they produce that poster? why turn your back on the issue that matters most to people in this country, which is our prosperity? Why turn our back on the 3 million jobs that are associated with our EU membership and the 1 million jobs that are directly associated? I'm a girl from the auto towns. We make cars near where I live. There are 300,000 jobs in this country that are associated with our cars and with the auto supply chain. That's 300,000 families for whom this decision is incredibly important. Because, for example, I can see the Toyota plant from the back door of my house. We know that there are 2 lines in that Toyota plant. One of the lines makes the Avensis, which goes out of production in 2017. And at that point, the decision that Toyota will have to make is typical of the decisions that will face businesses across the country. Toyota has spent hundreds of £millions in Derby. They've been fantastic for our town. The salaries in the ward where I live and where that factory is went up from an average of £17,000 to £31,000 in the 15 years that we've had that factory. But Toyota have shareholders. We have things like pension funds, which help to have part of ownership of these big companies. And the reality is, if we bring tariffs back, which is what we're talking about, because under international law we have to, then the price of the goods that we produce in this country, that all of you produce, is not going to be quite cost competitive anymore in Europe. So what we're doing is we're talking about taking the opportunity to compete on a level playing field away from people. And you know, I come from a farming background. For us, we're bulk goods, so we grow malts. We're talking about bringing customs back, because again, we have to. Then we're talking about produce that my family pulled together, just being sat at customs for a few hours. We're talking about a £50 charge on every container load. We're talking about paperwork, and we know that because we already export to Norway and Switzerland and to any one of the countries that Bernard will probably put forward as an example of how the model might work.
And I think that's probably a good idea for them to hear from Bernard. So I'm going to
Okay, let me summarise by saying we are
safer,
safer, we are stronger, but the key thing is that we are much more prosperous in Europe. And as business people, if you decide to take a risk with your business, it's your responsibility to explain to the people you work with why you are recommending that risk. Until the Outback campaign can do that compellingly, they shouldn't be asking us to come away from Europe.
Thank you. Before we hear from Bernard, and thank you for your points, we're just going to see a video from the Vote Leave campaign.
Every week, the United Kingdom sends £350 million of taxpayers' money to the EU. That's the cost of a fully staffed, brand new hospital. Or looked at another way, that's £20 billion per year. It's the same as half of England's schools' budget. 4 times Scotland's schools' budget. It's 4 times the UK's science and research budget, and 60 times the money we spend on cancer drugs. Let's imagine what else this money could buy. State-of-the-art hospitals, hundreds of new schools, pioneering health and scientific research. We could build new roads and improve the railways, expand regional airports, and we could lower taxation.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bernard Jenkins. Following a series of roles at Ford, 3i and Legal and General, Bernard Jenkins was elected to Parliament in 1992. He subsequently served as Shadow Energy Minister, Shadow Transport Minister and Shadow Defence Secretary. between 2006 and 2010, Bernard sat on the House of Commons Defence Select Committee, and in the last Parliament, he chaired the House of Commons Public Administration Select Committee. Today he is a member of the 1922 Committee of Backbench Conservative MPs and chair of the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Select Committee. Bernard is one of the Conservative Party's most prominent Eurosceptics. He speaks regularly on European issues and is on the board of Vote Leave. Bernard Jenkins.
Well, thank you very much. I'm bound to ask the question, where is the second Vote Leave speaker, but I will leave that on one side. Thank you all for coming today. And you know, one of the really exciting things is to be able to engage hundreds of people in a great debate about the future of our country. But I will take up the challenge that Kate has given me in her opening remarks and ask you to put your hands up. Who knows what the future holds? Who predicted that if we came out of the ERM in 1992, that the British economy would prosper and interest rates would fall and growth would accelerate? Well, not the Bank of England, not the CBI, not the Financial Times, not all the bodies, not all the great and the good, not the consensus. We are confronting a massive embedded consensus in our politics. And every time there is a great change in the direction of our country, it's usually a bunch of backbench insurgents and mavericks who are challenging the established consensus. Go back to how this country really put itself back on its feet. Margaret Thatcher was elected in 1979. I'm not making a party political point, but obviously lots of people were against Margaret Thatcher. In fact, 364 economists wrote to the Financial Times and told the world after the 1982 budget that Margaret Thatcher was wrecking the future of our country. They were all wrong. And we are now challenging an embedded consensus about our place in the world. Let me just explain to you what leave does look like. I don't believe in any template. There isn't going to be an off-the-shelf solution. We're just going to be like most other countries that run their own affairs. This is about taking back control over our laws, our borders, our parliament, our court, making our court, our Supreme Court, like most other countries. What the single market is a customs union with a great deal of interfering regulation. You don't need to be in the European Union to trade with the European Union. Many countries are outside the European Union. You know, you wouldn't believe it from all the propaganda we've had out of the government this week, but most countries outside the European Union are doing very well. Most countries outside the Union that trade with the European Union, do very well. And what they're worried about here, Martin Schulz, the President of the European Parliament, said, he's the German President of the European Parliament, he said, the danger of Britain voting to leave the European Union is it will create more escape referendums. Because the Emperor will be shown to have these economic clothes that the European Union claims for itself will be demonstrated not to be there. These are empty threats that somehow the politicians go around saying, oh, we can't possibly cope on our own, there will be complete disaster, there will be Armageddon, your interest rates will go up, your businesses will collapse, the investment will collapse. Do you know, that's what they said when people like Kate, I guess, were telling us we had to join the euro.
I was a bit young.
Well, there you are. Your predecessors. The CBI, the Financial Times, the Bank of England, the Treasury. Well, actually, in the end, the Treasury was so scarred by the ERM experience, they began to realise that wasn't going to work. So looking into the future, this great country, which has pulled itself up by its bootstraps, is now the 5th largest economy in the world. We've got the most attractive environment in the European continent for foreign investment. We have the finest legal system, the least corrupt courts, We've got the most massive global financial centre. We've got the greatest city in the world, voted top city over the last 4 years. We are a fantastically productive economy, and we are in a globalised trading world. What is not often understood is the European Union is the declining part of the world. 7.5% of the population, yes. When we joined, it had 26% of global trade, which is 26% of global GDP. Now it's 17%, and it's falling. The rest of the world is growing much faster. Many parts of the world with which we have very good connections are growing much faster. There are 2.2 billion consumers in the Commonwealth, and they're growing like steep. Do you know, we now export more to the rest of the world than we export to the European Union. What we export to the rest of the world is growing. The proportion of exports that go to the European Union is declining. Why should we be lashed into a failing economic construct which was invented in the 1950s, before globalisation, before computers, before the internet, at a time when to make an international call you had to book it through an operator? The world has changed. And as the 5th largest economy in the world is our oyster. And we don't need to be told what to do in order to survive in the world by the European Union. And it's worth just reflecting. What is this deal that we've got in the European Union? They sell us twice as much stuff as we sell them. And in fact, some of what we sell them, which is counted as exports to the European Union, is actually our exports going through Rotterdam and Antwerp to the rest of the world. To have access to this failing economic construct, to which we would have access anyway, we are paying a massive net £10 billion subscription, not to help the poorest countries in the world, but to subsidise our relatively wealthy EU competitors. What is the point? This is not, leaving the European Union is simply about taking back control and giving our country choices. We have many challenges in this world to face. The migration crisis, the potential collapse of the Eurozone, another self-inflicted disaster inflicted on our European partners by the European Union. We have more opportunity and more security if we control our own laws and be able to make our own decisions, at least for ourselves. And I'll just, if I'm running out of time, just end on this point. We're not leaving Europe. I mean, it's sometimes leaving the EU is caricatured as you know, wrapping yourself in the Union Jack and singing the national anthem and Land of Hope and Glory and chanting in the streets and pretending the rest of the world is going to go away. Absolutely not. But these 2 points, don't imagine that problems in Europe are not going to affect us if we're bound into all those treaties that David Cameron voted against, like Lisbon and Nice and Amsterdam, which he's now done a volte-face on. And don't believe for a moment that we're going to retreat from the rest of the world either. This will be an opportunity to release our country into the world, to prosper and lead in a way that we should have been leading more self-confidently than we can while we remain in the European Union. Thank you.